Being alone has allowed me to contemplate the taste of love, desire, hatred, and anxiety. The days are a blur. People ask what I do for work, for hobby. For God's sakes, don't tell them about psychoanalysis. So I invent things. I play dress up. I drive around. I do rounds at the hospital, checking in on the sick and dying. Talking to you is like talking to a magic 8-ball, she said to me. I guess that's better than being called the Prince of Non-Sequiturs, or being diagnosed by a shrink on Betterhelp after 5 minutes with schizophrenia. I read about a man once who lived in midtown Manhattan in the 1960s. He would get dressed, suit and tie, pack a lunchbox, and take the lift from his apartment on the 32nd floor during peak hour traffic with everyone. But he wouldn't stop at ground. No, he continued down to the basement. He had discovered a forgotten space there. Once he arrived at his office, he would take off all his clothes, down to his underwear, then sit at his desk and write. He stayed there until the end of the day, then put back on his suit and ride the elevator back up with the rest of the normies. No one was the wiser. I think about this man often. What stories do we tell ourselves? What fantasies do we maintain? Do we let go of? Do we design? Do we destroy? So I'm going to an orgy on Saturday. It's been a few years since I felt the inspiration, I wrote her. What sparked inspiration? She wrote back. Over-determination. What is there to say in these moments? It gets worse as I get older. Memories flood my mind. Is it the effect of psychoanalysis, mapping and weaving this tapestry of visions throughout my life? Or is it just me? In the Mars trilogy, as the people get new medical treatments allowing them to live beyond 140 years old, with the body of a 20-year-old, but their minds, their psyche is inundated with memories. What are we to do with all these memories? I'm training to work the suicide hotlines. They train us to reflect, to summarize, to reframe. But is it always possible to see the silver lining? Sometimes it's just overwhelming. Mother's frontal lobe may be permanently damaged, the medical reports tells us. Father took her to the Chinese doctor for TMC. Her qi is imbalanced. He prescribes her some herbs. I found myself angry. No amount of fucking qi balancing is going to help, you fucking quack, I wanted to say. But of course, I say nothing. No, that's not really true. I try to burst the bubble with my father. I accuse him of living in Disneyland. He doesn't get to go yet. I won't allow it. He calls the nursing home the resort. Today my mother called me as my father tried to usher her back in the car to return to the resort. She tells me that they are heading back to Gold Coast. It's her way of calling for help, self-soothing, her loss of autonomy. She's never really called me since I left the house when I turned 18. To connect, to be witnessed. No, she doesn't have that need. She's always been happy living her life. But now she has suddenly learned how to use her cell phone. It's a miracle. I find her on the phone downstairs. She sees me appear and hands me the phone, like a butler. She tells me that I ought to clean my room. My life from Germany, still half in boxes. And Gold Coast? Well, that was new. Is that where the resort of her mind is? Is that lie hers? Or father's? Doesn't matter. The two of them are conspiring together, continuing their co-created delusion. And who am I to correct them? The daydreams we all tell ourselves to keep on sleeping. At a recent workshop, a man talked with pain about his fears of the loss of his manhood. I'm afraid of being useless, of not being needed, of not contributing to anything. The woman leading the workshop had nothing to say to him. She was more interested in reframing our narratives towards the wondrous goddess or the mystical feminine. Truly, gender is a construct. But it feels as though humanity is just as much a construct, and no one knows what to do with oneself. It is ever more evident that we are not needed. There's already an app for that. A man I once knew in Berlin promotes sex positivity. He's actually Bavarian, another Bavarian tells me. They somehow leave the oppressiveness of West Germany to live grungy lives in Berlin, cosplaying poverty. He tells me that it was the way his generation fought against fascism. But did it? Turns out Hitler won. I realized retroactively that I was surrounded by Zionists. I found out that he had performed a vasectomy a long time ago. Suddenly his sex obsession made a lot more sense. I think about the bourgeois indulgence prior to each world war. The culture, the debauchery. There's something similar to the ecstatic people and the Zionists. They listen to the same kind of music. Wordless, EDM. It does help to clear the mind. The horror, the nightmares. But how does one forget thirst? you.